everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk. My name is John, and today here on the channel, we're going to be talking about Weird, the Weird Al Yankovic Story, and its brand new Shout Factory 4K Blu-ray that just came out. So Weird is directed by Eric Apal, and it's co-written with him and Weird Al Yankovic, and it tells the story of Weird Al's entire life from about 1975 to 1985. And because it's Weird Al, this is the guy who loves to parody other people's music. Of course he would want to parody other bioptic films for his own life story. So this movie is a complete, straightforward spoof movie of other bioptic films, and mainly they're trying to tell the story of Weird Al Yankovic's life from the time he's a child all the way through about Amish Paradise in 1996.
We've been spending most our lives living in an Amish paradise.
But for the most part, we like to stay in that 1979 to 1985 window, and everything in this movie is over-exaggerated, over the top.
Weird Al has taken the world by storm.
Do I know you?
Madonna.
You know, none of it's really based on fact. There's some little facts mixed in there, like at one point in the movie, they're recording My Belonga, and they're recording it in a bathroom. Now, that really was done, but not to this extent. They really wanted to show you that. So there are some truth sprinkled in there, but most of this stuff is just a complete parody. You know, we've seen this in other movies before, like Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox Story, or even Pop Star, Never Stop, Never Stopping. But we've actually never seen it with a real-life figure, and Weird Al, of course, would be willing to do this, and he's had this idea for years. He was actually showing a fake trailer for this movie starting in about 2010, and people just wanted to see this movie for real. He was making that trailer to spoof other movies like Ray and Walk the Line. After the revitalization of the music biopic with movies like Bohemian Rhapsody and Rocket Man, he decided to revisit the idea. He got Eric Apal. This is actually his directorial debut, but if you watch interviews with the two of them, you can see they have a great working relationship. They kind of have the same kind of story that they want to tell. Now, the only thing that's kind of disappointing about this movie, and why I think it was very overlooked in 2022 by people, including myself, I wasn't able to actually check this out last year, so this was a first time viewing for me, is that it was released on the Roku channel, and that's like basically being sent to direct video in 2022 at the time, because the Roku channel is a channel, yes, it was a free streaming service, anyone could have watched this movie, but it just didn't have that big feeling to it. It had an $8 million budget, and after watching the trailer, you know, the cinematography wasn't the greatest, so it kind of just flew by people's radar. I had every intention of watching this movie, it just slipped by me, but thank God when this movie was coming to 4K Blu-ray, thanks to Shout Factory, I decided, you know what, it's time to check it out. I love Weird Al Yankovic. Some of his music is some of my favorite music of all time. I just get a big kick out of it. Obviously, he's the best when it comes to parody music. There's really him and Richard Cheese are the only two artists that I really know who are, you know, at the top of this game. And they even make jokes about that in the movie, how he's going to be #1 in a very niche audience. And yeah, he really is. He's the king of parody music. And Weird Al Yankovic is always game. He's always one of the coolest people you've ever heard do interviews. So of course he would be down to make this movie. And they bring in Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself, to come in and play Weird Al. He doesn't do the singing scenes in this movie. He's actually dubbed by Weird Al Yankovic. They actually just have him lip syncing it.
Little hungry one, open up a package of My Banana.
That works out fine. It just looks like Daniel Radcliffe is having the time of his life. If this is what he wants to do with his time away from the Harry Potter series, I know that they're all rich as hell. They don't need to do things that they don't want to do. If this is what Daniel Radcliffe wants to do, I'm game. He looks like he's having the time of his life. He's hysterical. Now, he's playing this character straight-laced. He's definitely straight-faced throughout this entire movie. You know, everyone around him is kind of getting the big, over-the-top parts. At the beginning of this movie, we get Tom Lennon from Reno 911.
I'm just goofing. New boot goofing. Oh!
Coming in to sell the accordion to him. And his dad just ends up beating the ever-loving shit out of him, which is just absolutely hysterical. We get a lot of that in this movie. We get to see how a lot of the songs are created, and just parodying the fact that a lot of other movies like this, how all of a sudden they just get like this epiphany. They can just all of a sudden now write the greatest song ever. At one point, a character played by Jack Black in a great scene that was just spoofing Boogie Nights, the pool party scene in Boogie Nights, where we get so many different cameos. Blink and you miss a cameo, so make sure you're paying attention during that scene. But Jack Black plays a character in that scene, and he's like, I want you to write a song. If you're so good, write a song right now, on the spot. And of course, he ends up doing that, blowing everybody away. And we get a couple great moments like that in this movie. Early in the movie, Weird Al wants to go to a party, but his dad hates the accordion. That's basically doing crack to his father. So he goes to a polka party, and everyone's saying, you won't do it. Live a little bit. Play the accordion. And then, of course, he plays it, and everyone is blown away. This is the greatest accordion player ever. He's on to superstardom from here. And it's funny, we get a lot of great, probably the second co-star in this movie, besides Rainn Wilson of The Office, who actually came in 3 days before they were shooting this movie, and he does a great job in this movie. You wouldn't think that he came in at the last minute, just showing the range of his acting abilities, that he can get it all together and give a pretty damn funny performance. But Evan Rachel Wood comes in as Madonna, and they're trying to play around with the fact that at the time in the 1980s, Weird Al was spoofing all the big artists' music, and they wanted that Yankovic bump. Essentially, if he spoofs your music, which was kind of true, not to the extent that they're joking around in this movie about, but if he parodied your music, it got a little bit more famous. It got a bump from him spoofing your stuff. They wanted to hear the real version and the Weird Al version. Now, this movie turns that joke up to about 12, in my opinion, and it's absolutely hysterical throughout the entire film. I love those kinds of jokes. Evan Rachel Wood does a great job as Madonna. Everyone does a great job in this movie. You can just see that they're having a ton of fun. Just know that this is a straightforward comedy, so everyone is just doing great comedic performances in this movie. It's got those really dumb jokes that are just going to make you laugh out loud if you're into that kind of humor, because it can be pretty stupid at times, but I absolutely love that stuff. I had a great time watching this movie. The only flaws I have with this film are the cinematography. It just looks very cheap. It looks like we're doing this in front of a green screen. We're going to have that hazy background look to it like you see in a lot of modern horror films. If you've seen The Nun and The Nun 2, they just use that to excess to the point that it's disgusting. Now, this movie, the reason why they have to do things like that is because the budget is only $8 million. There's a lot of great faces in this movie, a lot of big cameos willing to help out. So they were able to cover up for the fact that they didn't have that much money, but they still did a great job. And if you're a fan of comedies, we just don't get much of these anymore in 2023. And to get one like this, I'm a big fan of parody movies. I'm a big fan of Weird Al Yankovic. I really wish I would have saw this in 2022, but at least I got to see it in 2023. So I could highly recommend this film if you haven't seen it, especially if you're a fan of comedies and you're a fan of parody films and you're a fan of Weird Al Yankovic. You're doing yourself a disservice by not seeing this one. So now we'll talk about the Shout Factory 4K Blu-ray, and I'll let you know if that's the best way to check this film out. So here it is, the Shout Factory 4K Blu-ray for the Weird Al Yankovic Story. And this movie, which is pretty fascinating, actually didn't have a physical release before this. Like I said, it was released on the Roku channel last year. And that kind of prevented it from getting Academy Awards. Even though it got nominated for Emmys, it's weird that the Roku channel wouldn't be able to get involved in the Academy Awards, mainly because they would say it's a streaming service, but services like Netflix, Disney, Apple TV, they get a pass, but the Roku channel didn't. Still find it strange that the Roku channel was the one that distributed this film, and I feel like that's why it didn't get enough eyes on it. So hopefully the Shout Factory 4K Blu-ray, and you can just buy the Blu-ray if you don't want to have the Shout Factory 4K, you can get the Blu-ray that is packed in here on its own as well. And when you compare the two, I will talk about that in a second, because let's talk about the packaging first. So you get your regular standard Shout Factory slipcover on the outside. You come underneath the same artwork, no reversible artwork. You come inside, you get individual disc design, that 4K Blu-ray, and that Blu-ray that you can buy separately if you just want the Blu-ray. And we'll start with the visuals first, because this isn't something that is going to blow you away. This was filmed in 2022, shot digitally, and like I said, the worst part about this movie, in my opinion, is the cinematography. It's got that very generic 2020 cinematography where the background looks hazy, like the light shining through the windows just looks so hazy and it overwhelms the scenes. The scenes just aren't lit that well. They're lit cheaply, in my opinion. I think that's the reason why the budget is so low. You know, they had to put the money in other places, which I really do appreciate. I understand that the cinematography was going to get the shaft, but when you're bringing this to 4K Blu-ray with Dolby Vision and HDR10, I just don't think that this is a very good-looking movie. And when you compare the Blu-ray and the 4K, there really isn't much difference. The 4K is brighter. It eliminates some of that digital grain that is on the actual Blu-ray. The 4K is kind of just making everything look a little bit more vivid, a little bit more dynamic, but there isn't as much pop as you would expect compared to the Blu-ray. This isn't a film that was filmed on film, so when those movies come to 4K Blu-ray, they actually end up looking a lot better because film is still nicer than shooting on digital cameras. And a movie like this just doesn't look great to begin with, and bringing it to 4K, I can really appreciate it. I'm really glad that they did. And if you get the Blu-ray, it really isn't that much of a difference. So if you want to own this film physically, you could probably just grab the Blu-ray because everything is pretty much the same. It's just you're going to get a little bit of a visual bump when it comes to the 4K. Not that much though, not a noticeable jump from the Blu-ray to the 4K. And that's kind of the thing when you have modern films. Now the audio, it doesn't say it on the box, it doesn't say it on Blu-ray.com. It's just going to say that it's a Dolby True HD 7.1, but it is a Dolby Atmos track, and that's going to be available on both the Blu-ray and on the 4K Blu-ray, so it doesn't matter which one you get, you're going to get that Dolby Atmos track. It's also got a DTS HD 5.1, a DTS HD 2.0 mono track, and it has a commentary track with Weird Al, so you get plenty of audio options, which is pretty cool, and that's on both the Blu-ray and the 4K as well. All of your extras are going to be on your Blu-ray disc, and there really weren't too many of them. They label a making of documentary of Weird Al. It's about 4 minutes long, and that was a little bit disappointing. You get some deleted scenes in there, one that was actually really funny that they kind of had a hard time cutting, but you get actually an introduction to those deleted scenes from Weird Al and Eric Appel, which was really cool, explaining why they had to cut the things. Seeing Weird Al's father get upset after Weird Al's mother gives him the shirt, the Hawaiian shirt, and he's like, look what I found under your son's bed. It's a Hawaiian shirt. And the dad's like, we're just going to have to accept it. Our son is weird. Like, all that stuff is really fun. You get that making of featurette, which isn't really anything. You get Seth Meyers' interview with Daniel Radcliffe and Weird Al. And you get a couple other little things in there as well. But it's really nothing that's going to blow you away. I just appreciate them giving us some extras. But this is the same price as other Scream and Shout Factory releases. And I think at this price, it's a little too overpriced because the audio, the visuals, and the extras are really nothing special, especially coming out the week before the Dead Zone comes to 4K Blu-ray, which I think is one of Shout Factory's best releases of 2023. It's just a little bit disappointing to see what they did with this movie and how they kind of just gave it like this almost feels like a studio release from Shout Factory. Essentially, they got the rights to this movie and they just wanted to put it out on physical media, which I really do appreciate. So it's kind of hard to insult this movie a little bit because it didn't have a physical media release before this. This will probably get more eyes on the film, and I think the film itself is fantastic. One of the funniest movies I've seen in years, just because we don't get comedies like this anymore. So I really appreciated it for that. But from a physical media standpoint, when you compare this to other physical media releases, it definitely does feel like a step down. This is something that feels like it should be in like the $20 range max, so I would recommend waiting for a sale for this one, unless you really want to see the movie, because at that point, the movie is fantastic. It's really funny, but if you want to just go the Blu-ray route, I can recommend that. If you want to wait for a sale for the 4K, I can recommend that. But I can't recommend in my heart going for this at full price. It feels a little overpriced for what the film is and for what they give us as far as extras, visuals, and even with the audio. The audio is probably the shining star of this. Like I said, you get a Dolby Atmos track on here. It's not the best Dolby Atmos track, but there's a lot of music scenes in this movie, and those scenes definitely do make the best of all of your channels with that Dolby Atmos track. But for the most part, it's very dialogue driven. All that stuff does come in crisp and clear. During the music scenes, though, we get a good amount of bass. We definitely make good use of the channels. I wish, though, it was just a little bit better. It's not the greatest. Just nothing in this 4K is the greatest. Nothing is offensively bad either, but nothing is also that great. It just feels like this is a studio release that just happens to be under the Shout Factory banner. And at that point, if you're going to release it like that, I just think it needs to be priced a little bit better, in my opinion, because it just doesn't have all the bells and whistles of a standard Shout Factory or Scream Factory release. But we do get the nice packaging. We do get the film on 4K Blu-ray and on Blu-ray. We get audio options. We get some extras. So it's not a swing and a miss. It's a ground rule double, in my opinion. So if I was going to give this 4K Blu-ray a score of 1 to 10, I would still give this one a pretty solid 7 out of 10. Not the best of the year, but also nothing that's going to really offend you. But anyway, guys, I want to thank you so much for watching this episode of Let's Talk. And if you want to continue to support Let's Talk, like our 2-channel producers, John Doe Juggalo and Jason Martin, or our 2-channel directors, Kevin Kruger and Frank Rodriguez, or just be a friend of the channel. If you want to join them in the membership tier, click the link in the description below to help support this channel financially. But if you don't got any money to throw our way, no big deal at all. Just hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, then just get out in those streets and tell your friends about us. And then we will be seeing you around.